Okay, here's your report.
Thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire a whole team of yous.
Try posting a job on LinkedIn. It's the world's largest professional network. Unlike resumes, LinkedIn gives a real-time view into a candidate's skills, experiences, and more.
Huh, let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Find your perfect match with LinkedIn. Post your free job at linkedin.com/achieve. That's linkedin.com/achieve. Terms and conditions apply.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply. USAA.
You are listening to episode 9 of Flixwatcher podcast. I'm Helen.
And I'm Kobi.
In this edition of Flixwatcher, we will be reviewing the Quentin Tarantino classic Pulp Fiction with Josh from Footballistically Arsenal and Dave from Fortitude Magazine.
I hope you enjoy the show, guys. Remember, please visit us online at flixwatcher.tv. Come to our Twitter account at FlixWatcherPod, and please go to iTunes, subscribe and review. So guys, just as a big reminder, all films on the podcast were available on Netflix at the time of recording. There will be bad language, there will be spoilers. I hope you enjoy it. See you later.
Welcome to this edition of Flixwatcher, and today we are joined by Dave and Josh. Dave, you want to say hello and introduce yourself for us?
Hi, yeah, my name is Dave Hudson. I'm a founder of Fortitude Magazine. We're an online community of journalists covering politics, music, TV and film and everything. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
What's going on?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having us on. I run something called Play with a Legend, which is a company allowing members of the public the opportunity to play football with former footballers. We're a bit of an agency for former football players. And I'm also part of a different podcast, which is called Footballistically Arsenal, which, as the title suggests, is a weekly look back on everything related to Arsenal Football Club.
Glad to have you on board. So, Dave, you chose Pulp Fiction. Why?
Indeed. So, I'd like to say I am a film buff. I would like to say I am, but I'm only 24, so there's only so many films that I've seen. And there's a lot of films that I'm supposed to have watched, and this is one of them. And I didn't want to watch it too young. I didn't want to watch it, too late. But it was just perfect because I actually appreciate everything about it. So I think it was the right time.
We asked people to give a synopsis, but can you give us have a go?
So, yeah, Pulp Fiction, where do you start? There's 3 stories that make one big story. Where do you even start? Because it's not even linear. Okay, so it's not linear. You follow 2 hitmen who are on a mission to get a briefcase for their boss. And you kind of follow them through a mad mix of journeys that intertwine with each other. And you introduce so many different characters that are there, and then they're not there, and then they come back to them, and then there's just so many different references to Reservoir Dogs, which, by the way, I haven't watched either, so don't crucify me. And yeah, I think that's a fair synopsis of...
I don't think we can go into too much depth, but there's three...
There's a lot of stories going on.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, you will know at least 3 or 4 scenes. You may even know quotes from it, having never even seen the film, because it is so kind of ingrained in our pop culture now. When Kobi said we're doing Pulp Fiction, I went, oh, yeah, great. And he went, Dave's never seen it. And I went, oh, to be watching Pulp Fiction for the first time ever, to have that experience, great. I'm very jealous of you.
It was one of those things, kind of like, I hadn't watched all the Star Wars saga until about 4 years ago. Mm. And then you watch it and you realize all these pop culture references just fall into place.
Yeah. And
you kind of understand everything. And it's how has one film had so much influence on just...
Well, Pulp Fiction has been huge.
Culture? Yeah.
And I when the Pulp Fiction, was it 94?
94, yeah.
So I didn't, obviously I was too young to watch. I was 14 at the time. But I knew Pulp Fiction through the soundtrack. Mm. So by the time I actually watched the film 2 years later, when I managed to blag my way a copy from the local DVD rental place, that's how old I am. There's DVD.
Yeah, there's I rented it on video.
Yeah, it would have been a video actually.
Yeah.
For me. But I knew, because the soundtrack was so evocative, because it had a lot of the quotes in there, I knew how the film kind of worked. But when I actually saw it, just wasn't anything like I thought it was going to be. It was like 20 million times better. And when you said you're going to watch it, because this is easily one of my top 5 films, so I'm super pleased that you mentioned this. Already you can see there's going to be a few high scores going from my point of view. Josh.
Yeah, I'd watched it, but only once before and years ago, like a long time ago, and I didn't remember all the storyline as much as I thought on reflecting it, second time. And yes, how do you describe a 2.5 hour film in 3 lines where there are different storylines going in every different place? It's not an easy task. But yeah, incredibly enjoyable. And I guess there's maybe so many iconic people who are in it. Obviously, we've got John Travolta, Samuel Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis. You got these absolutely iconic people of our generation of watching films. And I have probably watched not even half of the films the other 3 of you have watched. I'm not a film buff in any way, but this, as you said, Helen, is so iconic. It's so known. I think you can't help but at least recognise some of the sort of famous lines and quotes that have come out of it. And therefore, it was brilliant to sit and watch it again with almost different eyes at a different age, at a different time. So thank you, Dave. A great choice.
You're welcome.
I think it's kind of interesting because you've pulled out Bruce Willis, John Travolta, and Uma Thurman. At the time when this came out, I remember sort of going, "Oh,
yeah,
these actors, they make terrible films. They make really awful films, and they were really kind of making terrible films. They were kind of overweight, losing hair, or more hair in the case of Bruce Willis, and it was just kind of like, why would I want to go and watch a film with those guys? And probably it's kind of strange when you watch it then with that kind of feeling, whereas obviously now they've had a little bit of a resurgence. It's not quite gone so well for all of them, but it's I wish I could have erased it and then rewatched it just to kind of have this conversation and have that kind of new feeling about watching it, because I watched it again recently and it's so great. One thing I really like, the whole non-linear thing, is that you could effectively have it on loop and come into the film at any point and basically watch it until it kind of comes around again.
Yeah.
So it's got that kind of great thing that you can kind of switch it on, say if it's on the TV, and go, oh, I've only missed 20 minutes, it'll be fine, and just kind of watch the rest. I kind of love you can start at any kind of point, or you can start different stories, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoy this film.
So that's quite an interesting point you raised. And John Travolta at the time was best known for the Look Who's Talking films. Samuel L. Jackson was in quite a few films, but no one really significant. I think he was in
he was probably just about clean at that part.
He was in Loaded Weapon, and he was a part in Jurassic Park, like you said. Uma Thurman and Bruce Willis. So I mean, seeing as you, Dave, you weren't aware of it at the time. What did you think? Because this is the film that really kicked those guys up again.
Yeah,
absolutely. And
is it like the Matthew McConaughey effect?
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Well, you're right. I was reading online just again a sort of background for this, is in terms of Travolta took a absurdly low fee in return for being part of it. And it was said to almost revitalise his career on the back of it. So, it's interesting. Because obviously, 1994, I was 7, completely oblivious to anything that was going on in this space. But to look back and realise how not only iconic as a film, to the extent it got in your top 5, which is incredible. Not only iconic as a film, but in changing those people's and those actors' fortunes. So that's amazing to think of that as well.
And this is only Tarantino's second directorial film. His third screenplay that have gone to print.
I mean, they must have just, on the base, you said you've not seen Reservoir Dogs. No. You should do, because it is awesome. Yeah. I don't think it's as good as Pulp Fiction as a film as a whole, but, watching that for the first time, it's you still can't believe this. I mean, I watch Pulp Fiction now and still think, that was made in 1994. It could have been made last week. Yeah. It's just not aged because the characters obviously inhabit this very strange world where it's kind of happening now, but they're not, because of the way they're dressed, the music they listen to, where they talk, where they go. I mean, they go to this burger bar, which is obviously a retro-themed burger bar, but the period that it's meant to be emulating, they're kind of living in it. So it just has this extremely timeless quality about it. which is great. And I mean, it just looks, we've got some pictures up in front, and they're just, if you could guess now which pictures would be up there, you know, there's the dance scene with the burger, there's, you know, Uma Thurman, who is fantastic in this.
Yeah.
Like, I have this thing that Tarantino kind of writes really fun and interesting roles for women.
Oh,
There's
Jackie
not-
Brown, yeah.
There's not that many directors out there that put females as kind of like their main characters and makes them completely badass, but also kind of, you know, they are quite vulnerable as well. So his portrayal of women in most of his films is really, really interesting. And
Good point.
it's quite rare to see someone do that with cinema.
What I don't know if there is a favourite of the three stories. So the three stories are the Gold Watch, Vincent Vega, and Marcellus Wallace's wife, and the Bonnie situation. Are there? Does anyone have a favourite of those stories that went through, or can you separate them out, or can you?
I love Vincent Vega. I mean, I didn't.
Vincent Vega.
Yeah,
Vincent Vega.
I didn't enjoy the watch thing too much. I mean, it's just like, it's a watch, dude. Just leave town. You can buy a new watch.
but it's kind of
Start your own
heritage
legacy.
and,
Oh yeah, but I mean,
I have a slight wrinkle in that, because if it was such an important thing, just take it with you.
yeah.
Take it with yourself,
all the
don't
time.
we?
Do what his dad
Well,
did.
So in a boxing
Not
match,
true.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
Come on.
a POW camp, sure, but a boxing match, I mean, same thing, right? Maybe, I don't know. It's fine.
does anyone have a favourite story that they take from it, or?
Well, I like the end. I mean, the ending sounds a sort of, you know, because it's that
Bonnie
moment of
situation.
clarity. Because, you know, even in this world of gangsters and shooting people, he manages to see that the fact he should have died,
Yeah.
that you know, these bullets were flying around him, and therefore that's his moment of clarity. That's his decision to go and live a life without crime, to the extent where, you know, we talk about this ultimate idea of redemption. This is me thinking back to like Judaism now. I'm Jewish, and you talk about the ultimate idea of redemption is when you find yourself in exactly the same situation as where you've been in the past, but you act differently. It's that sign of what's changed, and he finds himself in that final scene in the diner, putting a gun to someone's face, who he has every right in his world to, you know, say goodbye to, and yet not only does he not, he allows the guy to walk off with all this money and the wallets and. You know, and he's kind of just found. He goes, no more for me.
And
I'm
with the
giving
moral-
this briefcase, and then I'm out of here. And that I kind of liked. A bit simplistic, maybe I've made it, but there you go.
Well, not at all. I mean, that was the end of the film, but,
Yeah.
but it's not the end of the story, is it? Because if you,
No.
Well, the briefcase is still in hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, what I mean is that's the second. I guess if it follows from a linear point of view, is that the middle of the actual story arc as
Well-
a whole. Let's not maybe go into that.
Yeah, let's not think about it too much, because I think if you do try and think about it too much, then you do kind of start picking holes in the timeline, and I think you should
Just enjoy it.
just enjoy it. I mean, one bit that I don't know is the bit, I can't remember it. Is it kind of where it's got Marvin and he's in the back of the car?
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to have an opinion.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. It's just one of those really bizarre, completely comes out of nowhere moments. And obviously then Mr. Wolf comes along and
Yeah.
kind of hoses them down, and the obligatory Tarantino cameo.
Tarantino. That was.
And it's just, there's so many great moments in it that are, okay, there's some like little bit violence and it's kind of really obscure ultra violence as well in a way, but it's kind of funny, and the characters in it are all,
Endearing.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
just, you know, there's just something about the way that they've been written that, you know, Samuel Jackson and John Travolta have this great buddy relationship.
Absolutely.
You know, they're great on screen together, and their little arguments and like the little things that they have between them. You know, Uma Thurman and John Travolta dancing, and this kind of awkward romance they've got.
One coked at one on heroin.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's
I think
it's great.
one thing I really loved when I heard the soundtrack before even watching the film was the conversations that went on. The quarter pounder with cheese, royale with cheese conversation.
Yeah.
That, you know, slays me every single time. Big kahuna. But there's so many quotable lines. There's so many things there. Travolta and Samuel Jackson were made to be together in this film, and you know, it kind of tears me up a bit that Samuel Jackson went separate ways after it in in the story of Pulp Fiction. It'd be nice to think that they're still together and driving around in the same beaten up car and
killing people,
and stuff. I just love the conversational style of Quentin Tarantino's scripts has never been better than I think than in this.
Absolutely. I think these comical moments that we've just touched upon there is what's so great, that they, even in this ridiculous world of killings, and there's a moment even where I think Mr. Wolf goes around and tries to address this situation. How do we clean this up? How do we move forward? But he still sort of has time to sit there and have a cigarette, and like tell me what to do, have his cup of tea, and be really clear about these instructions. There's kind of absurd moments, but I think just make it the brilliant script that it is.
You're sitting there and you always think, how did he write this? Because it feels so natural. It's like you almost can't write it. It almost feels like you are just a fly on the wall of these people's just day-to-day life and their activities. And I just think that's what makes it so brilliant, because it feels so personal in a way. You're just watching it and it's just...
It just flows, washes over you, and you're enveloped in it and stuff like that.
It did win the Oscar for Best Screenplay. I believe it was co-wrote with someone.
I think there's 3 stories, and Tarantino was attributed to the story of 2 of them, and the other guy, I can't remember what his name was.
Roger Avery.
Yeah.
Avery.
Was it Roger Avery?
Yeah.
He wrote the other story, and I think it won the Palme. Did it win the Palme d'Or?
It did indeed. Yeah.
And that's what brought it to my attention. It's like, even back at 14, it's like, shit, he's won the Palme d'Or. I don't pay attention to the Palme d'Or nowadays because I can't. A lot of the stuff that comes out of doesn't interest me that much as if it's a prize winner. But to
be honest, Tarantino's films don't really interest me that much these days. But
I've not seen Hateful Eight yet.
No, me neither.
Please don't.
I didn't. I mean, I the thing that really. Tarantino films are known for being very violent, and I didn't feel like this film was as violent as, say...
I was going to ask about that,
because I think the first Tarantino film I watched was Inglourious Bastards, and then it was Django, and I'm like, Tarantino's just... It feels like he's just...
He kind of has to play up now to...
Yeah, the whole
it's like
thing.
the tick card of the checklist, like, does it have this? Does it have that?
Yeah.
And, nowhere near of any of his recent releases have been anywhere near this fun. Even with Reservoir Dogs, there's a lot of fun in that. It's kind of got a bit. He's got a bit serious, and a bit poncy, and a bit.
I think it's the naivety. He has that naivety of just making something that he wants to make, and now it's more about just doing what the studios are telling him to do.
Do you think with 2016 eyes, it is actually that violent?
No,
because there's not that much. You don't see actually that much blood. There's a lot of gunfire going off.
I mean, but then, we've completely skipped the scene, which...
Oh, the male rape.
Yeah. So, that...
yeah, that's true.
We've kind of missed that bit. And, doesn't he take a chainsaw? The outcome is... I can't remember how he does.
He gets a samurai sword.
Yeah.
That's it. So, that little snippet there, it goes from being kind of like a little bit lighthearted and, okay, Bruce Willis's kind of escape thing to being... really, really dark.
Yeah, true.
Very quickly, and it kind of turns. And that's kind of the one thing when you kind of rewatch it, you almost forget that's in there, and then you're like, "Oh shit, it's that." And then you've kind of got, because obviously the gimp is the funny side of it, and then there's also that really, really horribleness.
There's also that question of the unknown, because when Bruce Willis runs off and he's off onto the motorbike, but you're sort of left in there, aren't you, with Marcellus Wallace. Claiming that he's about to get medieval on the police officer.
Great thing.
And you're kind of thinking, well, we don't see it. So, it's not quite as, I guess, graphic as it could have been. But yeah, I mean, the other, what was the other bit of the comedy? We were just looking at the photos up here again, and we've got that picture of Uma Thurman with the milkshake. That was another wonderful moment.
$5 shake.
Because even now you think that's not cheap for a milkshake. And this is 1994.
Yeah.
I did sit there trying to wonder what was $5 in 1994, and that's obviously quite a lot of money. And that was great. Another sort of just one of those sort of softer moments of comedy that maybe make us sort of think of it a bit lighter than it could have been.
Yeah, I think I'm just tinted by like Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, where you're just used to seeing insane amount of violence, and just sexual and like tones and stuff. So.
And that's just on TV every day.
Yeah.
where to start.
And especially because I felt like I'm not sure if it was taken directly, but a lot of the Grand Theft Auto films games have this kind of vibe. So I play Grand Theft Auto a lot, so you kind of are desensitized to it now. But the storytelling is the thing that keeps you hooked. When I think it's not the shock and awe of someone having their chest blown up while eating a burger. That doesn't shock me anymore.
No. I mean, those things were, when I watched them at perhaps 15, 16, there was properly kind of, I don't know if I was shocked or just mind blown as to say what one more time. Just it's those lines combined with the violence and Samuel just flipping on a sixpence, going into the Bible quote, Ezekiel 25:17. Yeah. Just shooting the guy dead in the sofa without him necessarily doing anything. There's so many looking at the images here, like Josh says, there's so many cool and awesome scenes. There's the dance scene, there's sticking the adrenaline through her heart because she's overdosed, and
I mean, again, that's one of those really, really finely balanced moments where it's a really horrible situation and she is dying, and it could go either way. We've got no idea at this point. And then obviously spoilers, she comes to and they're all kind of laughing. And it's kind of that is the level of the movie all the way through. There's kind of this excitement, the uncertainty, the familiarity, the jokes. He hasn't quite, I don't think, reached this peak. I think this will be his masterpiece. This is what people will remember him for.
Is this your favourite of his films?
It's hard because I really, really like Jackie Brown. I think that is really strong. But I think this has everything. This has the cameos. You've got Steve Buscemi in a cameo. Yeah. You've got like Tim Roth in a cameo. You've got like
Christopher Walken
in a cameo, and you've got
always a pleasure.
The soundtracks, the costumes, the period it invokes. The non-linear storytelling, which has been done so many times now, but he kind of got there first. He will never reach these giddy heights, having seen Hateful Eight ever again, unfortunately. It's kind of, if you were doing film studies now, this is kind of like the postmodern film. This is, the one that people will look to when it changed cinema, because
it did do.
With the soundtracks, with the casting,
the non-linear. This was a Moneyball film, wasn't it? In terms of taking low-ranking actors and showing that they can perform together as a piece. I mean, to show how influenced I was about this film, I got a bad motherfucker wallet.
I had the poster on my wall for years and years.
I had like two. I had at least two Pulp Fiction posters on my wall. The soundtrack going on. I knew all the words of the soundtrack. The soundtrack was. I mean, we talk about the soundtrack, and that's one thing that Quentin Tarantino carved out really well, and Scorsese does it well. Is that kind of jukebox soundtrack where Tarantino's famous for only picking films that soundtracks that he owns, music that he owns, and I think from Dusty Springfield's Son of a Preacher Man through to as a Teenage Wedding, Chuck Berry works perfectly with every kind of core and asset and angle of this film. What are your thoughts on the soundtrack?
I love the soundtrack. I mean,
have you heard it before?
I hadn't. No, I hadn't. No, I mean, as someone that just is all about soundtrack, like Drive and and other like insane soundtracks that makes the film. Like this is one of those ones you look back, you're like, the soundtrack is just as good as the film.
Yeah.
It also hinges on a lot of the key scenes, like the dance scene is soundtracked. Urge Overkill, You'll Be a Woman, other things as well. It's just everything together just works really, really, really well. And it is, as I said before, it's a lot of fun. It's Tarantino at his best, and it is quite long, but it doesn't really feel like that because because it's the pace. It's so well paced that there's not really a moment where it kind of dips, which I think overall in some of his more recent films they tend to get a bit overindulgent, whereas this is all the way through. You kind of got pure Tarantino for the whole thing.
What do you think was in the briefcase?
I think it was just a light bulb attached to a circuit in the back.
Like on Community.
I think I think the 2.5 hours thing is because it's 2.5 hours long, isn't it?
Maybe a little bit more even.
And that would, if someone's that kind of puts me off going to the cinema, that kind of length of film. And I think that when we come to the scoring system shortly, that's probably would nowadays limit my desire to watch it again, especially because we're talking about Netflix films. They're talking about things on Netflix. It's so easy to get access to a lot of good content nowadays that things that are longer simply don't get a look in for me that much, because I think, I can watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off twice and watch Lord of the Rings one episode. So that seems to me like better bang for buck. Should we go to the scoring system? Should we go to the score?
Let's see how we come out with this one. So you pick the film. So Dave, do you want to give us your score?
Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Recommendability.
Yeah, the recommendability.
Can I do a 5.99? No, I'll go with a 4.9.
What?
Nothing's ever perfect, is it? But it's not fair.
Depends how you look at the world, Dave.
Yeah,
I think.
it's true. I mean, but I sat down with my girlfriend to watch it, and she got bored after like an hour because she got lost. So it's not for everyone, but
Sure.
it is one of those films that I'm like, yes, you need to watch it. You do need to watch it.
Josh?
Yeah, I'd go 4.5. I think it's an absolute classic film that has, long survived the test of time. I don't think there are that many films I'd probably imagine sort of wanting to sit down for 2.5 hours, especially now when as you say, when there's so much easily accessible, and 90 minutes or 100 minutes feels like enough time. But when it came to sort of this being, Dave's suggestion as to what we would watch in advance of sitting down together, I was happy to, and I think happy to because I knew I would watch it in a different way to them watching it, I think, around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't quite remember. So, I would recommend it strongly. If someone hadn't seen it, I would say, this is a film worthy of 2.5 hours of your time.
No, absolutely. Helen?
I've got to get it a 5. I mean, watching this, when you're 15, like back in the 90s, this was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And watching it now, I enjoy it. I mean, I know what's coming, but also I kind of forget. It's like, oh yeah, that story's in with that bit, and kind of enough time elapses between it for me to come back to it again and again and again. And I just think it is the best Tarantino film. And if you have even the inkling of interest in cinema or popular culture even, then, you should definitely watch this.
I'm going to give it 4.9 only because I couldn't recommend it to my parents.
My dad loves this film.
Yeah, I don't think my parents would like it. But I think there's a small number of people, but if you haven't seen it, and when Dave said I hadn't seen it, I was just like, excited for you, like Helen said. I was excited that you hadn't seen it and you're going to watch it for the first time, and this is going to be the first time you talked about it was with us, and I was like, yes. It was, what, I'll just give it a 5. I don't know why 4.9. That's ridiculous. Repeat viewing score, Dave.
It's up there with like Lost in Translation and Back to the Future and just Alien and just those. I mean, it's just, you've got to watch it like a million times, because you can watch it once and that's not even scratching the surface. You need to keep going over and combing again as much references and little bits that you can. So you've just got to keep watching it until you die, basically. You finally understand every little bit about it.
So what does that give you?
4.9.
So consistency to your scoring, Dave. Well, I think I'd probably go about 3, and that's probably mainly in my attitude to watching things back. For example, I think one of my favourite ever films is Shawshank Redemption. I just looked up how long that is.
It's nearly 3 hours, that, isn't it?
It's not. It says here, well, as I look up online, it says 142 minutes, which would be 2 hours 22, which would make it shorter. And yet I think mentally I always think, I'd love to, but I just don't have 2.5 hours. And yet, actually, it's shorter than Pulp Fiction, and so I can't go more than 3, only on the grounds that I don't usually think I ever want to give up 2.5 hours to something I've already seen when there's so much I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And like you say, this world of Netflix opens you up to so much and so many opportunities. I think I would find it hard to justify in my head the idea there wasn't something I would rather watch for the first time than go back and watch. But if I was to go back and watch something, sure, this is there, so it's 3.
I'm completely with you that I would be, there are so many other films out there that I should watch, but this is one of them that I would happily give 2.5 hours to watch again and again and again. And I've been watching it for, a good 10 years now. So
11 years, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4. I'm not going to give it a 5 because it is long, and I have said that I can quite happily watch it at any point and watch the rest of it without being slightly niggled that I've missed the start. So that's why I'm not going to give it a 5, because I can kind of dip into it whenever and still enjoy it.
I think for me, I'm going to give it a 4. Prior to Netflix, it would have been a stone cold 5. I think I watched it at least twice a year when it first came out.
Because you probably would have had to have got out your VHS copy, put it in the player, or your DVD copy.
I had it on VHS. Well, I got it on VHS and DVD and then Blu-ray. That kind of sad pathetic person that I was. But now, because of the prolificness of media, that, like you say, Josh, and how I've alluded to it before, it just makes it a difficult choice to make. It'd be nice to watch something new, I think, sometimes, and hopefully you'll find your new Pulp Fiction. But I think I wouldn't go more than a year or a year and a bit without watching Pulp Fiction generally. So it's going to be high, but if it was an hour and a half short, if it's an hour shorter, then it would be a stone cold 5, I think.
Yeah, very good. So what's next? Small screen. You've got to go to Dave on.
Yeah,
I have a 47-inch TV, so it was great.
Oh, you show off.
Yeah, I know, but if it was anything smaller than that, you lose a lot of the magic. So I'd give it a 2.5. Small screen.
Josh.
Go 3 here. I feel it feels like a film you would want to sit in the cinema and enjoy more than you would at home, but not that you can't enjoy it at home. So I guess I fall somewhere in the middle. So I've gone 3.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3 as well. I didn't see it at the cinema. I would have obviously loved to have seen it at the cinema, but I'm quite happy watching it on a laptop. But I'm also kind of thinking that I'd actually really like to go to a kind of secret cinema Pulp Fiction themed night, and
that'd be amazing.
Kind of have an immersive experience with this that's kind of played around a lot of the events, and watch it on a big screen with a group of people who really, really love it and watch it all the way through. So,
3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 3.5. I've only ever seen it on the small screen, and back then it wasn't even a flat screen when the first few times I watched it. So it's only getting better. But yeah, I would love to see it. If it came to Prince Charles Cinema, for example, I'm sure it has been at some point on Prince Charles Cinema.
Dress up and,
quote along, sing along to the tunes.
Have big kahuna burgers.
Yeah, amazing.
$5 milkshakes. It'd be great.
Yeah. Engagement score.
4. It is hard to keep engaged with it sometimes. Like when you guys came in and we were talking about, we watched the Community episode that referenced it. I was like, who are those? Who is Annie and Troy supposed to be? And you're like, oh, it's Pumpkin and Honey Bunny. I was like, oh yeah, those two. I forgot about those two, because there's so much going on. Like it is hard to engage, especially in the age of Snapchat.
Were you Snapchatting whilst Pulp Fiction was on?
No, it's mainly to do with you have now you have 8 seconds worth of concentration, and you do have to concentrate on it now. But I reckon if it was 15 years ago, you would be like, yeah, this is great.
Well, I think this is an interesting one in terms of when you're in a cinema, you are less distracted.
Yeah.
Your phone is invariably off. You are sat with someone else, and you don't really have all the distractions that you might do in your house. The thought of going to the fridge, so you sit there more. So I think I can't, because I've seen it in a Netflix environment, seeing it at home. I can't really go more than sort of 3.5 here because it is that long, and I don't think I could sit and necessarily watch at home. I didn't manage to sort of sit there without stopping at some point. I can't remember exactly when. I assume sort of just after halfway. And that I don't think is ideal. I think you would like to think that clearly it's designed to be watched in one go, and therefore if I fail to do that, I can't go beyond sort of 3.5 territory. Or maybe that just sort of signifies my inability to sit still for that length of time, but I can only go 3.5.
Helen?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll give it a 4 or 3.5. I'm going to give it a 4 anyway, just because it's kind of part personal engagement and also a little bit of what you've kind of said. I think for anyone watching it the first time, you're either going to go completely batshit over the non-linear thing and just be like really into it, or you're going to get confused and frustrated and be like, it's 2.5 hours, I don't even know what's going on, who's this person, have we met them before, and some kind of switch off. But for me personally, I've seen it before and I'll watch it again, and I'll sit there and I'll watch it, and I will enjoy it and we'll stick with it all the way through. And yeah, I mean, for me, I just think it's great, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 4 in a nutshell.
I'm giving it a 4. Slightly too long. Slightly bit too... Well, I don't... That's the only thing that's going against it is the length. Yeah, I just love this film. I think it's magic and, yeah, easily one of my top 5 films.
I'm going to keep a note of these, so I see how many the top 5s are actually in the top 5.
Do you do this every time, Kobi?
Yeah, every time it's top 5 or bottom 5 film. There's no in between.
Right. Only allow your brain to remember 10 films you've seen at one time. You have a promotion and relegation from top 5 to bottom 5 very quickly.
So that gives us an overall score of 3.9, which is very commendable.
It is commendable, but wouldn't you have thought it would be higher? Wouldn't you have sat here half an hour, 40 minutes ago and thought that is going to end up high? And maybe you need to look at the scoring system. That's the only conclusion I can make. Great film, because even I've ended up with the lowest of all 4 of us at 3.5.
And you've
as
not
an
really
average.
said anything negative
And
about it. I've said nothing negative.
Other than I
about
managed
it.
to not sit through it in one go. I had to have a sort of 5-minute break in the middle. But of course, I feel it's more than 3.5 out of 5. I think you ought to admit the most important of all your options here is recommendability.
Yeah, I mean
Is
that
that
is
even a word? Recommendability.
You're the journalist. You're the journalist. You let us know.
I'm not convinced. I won't hold it against you. But I think all of us clearly would put 4.5, 4.9, 5, and 5 for recommendability. So we would all just make anyone watch it if we had that choice.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic place. Well, guys, let us know where we can find you again.
Yeah, well, for Josh, it's at Josh_Lanty on Twitter. But for podcast reasons, it's Footballistically Arsenal. So if you search that into iTunes or search Arsenal, we're one of the first options come up. So if you happen to be a football fan and a fan of Arsenal, if you're not, you probably won't enjoy it. So if you are a fan of the red side of North London, then please do join us there, and look forward to having you join us.
You can find me at Fortitude Magazine. Just Google us. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and everything. We just launched our new official Spotify verified playlist. So if you're
Spotify verified.
We are Spotify verified. So if you would like to, thank you. So if you like to listen to music that isn't Justin Bieber or Kygo, come join us. They are the only 2 options.
I think we are going to set
I might pass on that.
We're going to set up a Spotify playlist for the films.
That sounds good.
And soundtracks and stuff that we play. So I'm pretty much just going to copy paste all of the soundtrack and dump it in there because I think it's ace. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so
Thanks
much. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks to our awesome guests today, Dave from Fortitude Magazine and Josh from Footballistically Arsenal. Big up, as always, to our awesome editing guys, Tony and Jay from GL Productions, and thanks to the mighty people for their mighty tunes. As always, we are on iTunes where you can subscribe and review. Come find us on Twitter, we're at Flixwatcher Pod, and the website where we've got all our full listings of this episode, previous episodes at flixwatcher.tv.